BA Honours, Psychological Research, PSY 05. Very good morning to all of my students, dear friends. Today we'll talk about steps in scientific research and orientation of the research. What is research? How we do it? As a matter of fact, as you see that your paper is psychological research. So we must know, we must have the orientation about the research, its approaches, and what are the steps in the scientific research method. If I tell you what is research, basically two models came before us. One model was given by the Socrates, the second model was given by the Bacon. Socrates model is based on postulates, two postulates which we call sometimes syllogisms. In the postulate, there are three parts. There is a major premise, minor premise, and then we come to the conclusion. Suppose I say all college students are intelligent. It is a major premise. I am talking about the larger group, the whole population of the students. All college students are intelligent. What will be the minor premise? Mr. X, X is name, Ashok, Ram, Gita, Sita, Rahman, whatever you can say. Mr. X is a college student. So what is the conclusion? So he is also intelligent. Now this model was given by the Socrates, and he says that you form the postulate in the major premise, minor, and then on that basis we come to a conclusion. Now you may ask a question, sir, how postulates will be formed? These postulates are formed on a number of bases. It is formed on the basis of the authority. Authority, what is authority? My seniors, my parents, my grandparents, my teachers, whatsoever they have told me, I assume that, well, this is good, so he belongs to this category, he will also be good. It may be your experience. You may form this by experience. My experience is this community is giving donation very generously. He also belongs to that community, so we also give donation generously. This is my experience. We may form on the basis of analogy. Analogy, a comparison. For example, if the pen is to write, then knife is to dash, we will say cut. As a patient is for the doctor, so student is for the teacher. So on the basis of analogy, we can also formulate the postulate. This was the Socrates model. The second model, you know, because we have to talk about the methods in the scientific research, the steps in the scientific research, second model was Bacon. He says that don't make any postulate. What do? You do yourself, do the work. Research by doing is called as the Bacon's model, and this model is called as the empirical model of the research. For example, just to explain this, I give you a narration. Once a debate was in the kingdom. The king was sitting and the whole ministers were sitting, the wazirs, the nawabs were sitting. He asked a question that how many teeth a horse has? Then one minister said, sir, the horse has 30 teeth. The second minister thought that if his king is satisfied, he will get the award, he will get the prize, because whenever the king is pleased by any answer, he gives some money or the gold or whatever he wants to give, coins he gives in the award in the form of the prize. He said, no, sir, how we can say that the horse has 30 teeth? How he knows? Then king said, you tell me. He said, sir, it will be better you call the doctor who is veterinary doctor, who is dealing with the horse, he can tell us better that how many teeth has. The king said, it is a very good suggestion. But the third minister said, now he may get the prize. He said, sir, our doctor, the doctor who is dealing with the horses, the animals, he is now very old. The time has changed, it might be that there must be some change. So then king said, what to do? The third minister said that go in the library and bring a book. In the book it is mentioned that how many teeth a lion has, how many teeth a elephant has, how many teeth a goat has, how many teeth a horse has. So we will go through the book and that will come to how many teeth a horse has. The fourth minister said, no, if the king is satisfied that he may get the prize, he may get the award. He said, sir, there are certain mistakes in the printing mistake in the books. Maybe the author may not be giving the correct information. Then king said, what to do? Now you suggest me. Everybody is, making me fool, not giving the answer. He said, sir, do nothing. Bring a horse, open its mouth and we will count the teeth. Now this is research by doing. So research by doing, this model is Bacon's model, and in this model we do by actually action, how by conduction, and it is called as the empirical method of the research. Now when you talk about the empirical methods, then you will have to think about the steps, because a research is a systematic, what is science? A systematic organized knowledge. It is a systematic, it is a organized. When it is systematic, organized, then there must be some steps in the methodology. So today we will talk about that what are the common steps when we do the scientific research. So topic, I have justified the topic, tried to explain that what we are actually going to study, what we are going to teach, what are the different steps in the scientific research. So when you are doing the research by a systematic method, there must be some steps in that. So today we are talking about what the steps you will take in a research. A scientific research is a process by which scientists study various phenomena using systematic methods of collecting, analyzing and interpreting data. It is often referred to act as a creative process because it involves novel uses to test ideas that can lead to new ideas and information. It helps us to understand how things work. Since psychology is the science which studies human and animal behavior, it becomes important to see steps involved in the research. As I told you in the beginning, that the science is a research is a systematic process, and when you are doing a systematic process in research, what do you do? Sometimes you give a new phenomenon, new theories. Sometimes you test the old theories. The theories which have been given, we test them. Sometimes we find the applicability of the theories or the phenomenon which people have given us. So when you are doing this, what you have to do? First you have to collect the data, then you have to analyze the data, and then you are to make the interpretation of the data. So steps between collecting, analyzing, interpretation, all these steps are involved in the research process. Any science, not about the psychology, any science you take. Now because psychology is the science of the human and animal behavior, so we are to adopt the scientific methods in which I have told you how we will collect the data, how we will analyze the data, and how we will interpret the data. Now first step is the perceiving the question. Perceiving the question is selecting a problem which is to be investigated. You notice something interesting happening. An example might be that you have noticed that your children seem to get a little more aggressive with each other after watching a particular violent children's cartoon program on Saturday morning. You wonder if the violence in the cartoon could be creating the aggressive behavior in your children. This step is derived from the goal of description, what is happening here. This question needs investigation, and this question is called a problem. So very first step in the problem in the research is selection of the problem. Which problem you will attack, which problem you are going to answer, which you are going to solve is your called as the problem. That is why I didn't write in the heading perceiving the question. Question means that came in your mind. What is the problem? The thing which came in your mind. Now in example I have given, suppose we observe that the children, young children in the family, they are behaving normally. They are behaving normally in a very cohesive environment. They are living, they are behaving with each other. So they have seen a movie, a cartoon movie in which the aggression was shown. After the movie, now they are becoming aggressive toward each other. Now a question comes to my mind: does that cartoon movie in which aggression was shown is responsible for creating or producing aggression in my children, in my child? If that is the cause, this question came in my mind. So I have this problem came in mind, and I will do the research that whether the aggressive movies produce aggression in the children or the human beings or not. So study of aggressive movies on the aggressive behavior of children, this question came in mind and became the problem. Unless and until you have a question, you have a problem, whom you are going to solve, about whom you will collect the data, whom you interpret. So the very first step is the selection of the problem. Now, how to select the problem? This is another topic we will talk about when we will come to the problem. How to select a problem, what is a good problem, what are the sources we will talk about. Here we will talk about first the steps only. So, very first step is you are to select a problem. After selecting the problem, next step came forming hypothesis. You are to prepare a hypothesis. Now, you have assumed a question in your mind, a problem. Hypothesis is the proposed answer of the problem. Is the proposed answer of the, I am saying proposed. It is not confirmed, it is not accepted, it is not rejected. I have assumed that aggressive movies may produce aggression in the children. It is my hypothesis. Aggression movies may not produce aggression in my child. It is another hypothesis. So, hypothesis testing is one of the very important stage, and that is the assumed answer, and that data will prove whether it is correct or not. Now, how we will choose the problem? How we will form the problem? What are the characteristics of the problem? What are the different types of the problem? We will talk later on when we will talk about separately about the hypothesis. Here we are talking only about the steps. So, after the problem we are to form a hypothesis. Once you have a problem, then you want an answer to the next logical step in the research is to form a tentative answer or explanation for the behavior you have seen. This tentative explanation is known as hypothesis. What answer you are assuming, I have told you proposed, what is coming in your mind, that is the hypothesis. Based on your initial observation of what is going in your surroundings, you form an educational guess about the explanation for your observations, putting it into the form of a statement that can be tested in some way. Testing hypothesis is the heart of any scientific investigation and is the primary way in which support what theories is generated. The heart of the research is one of your hypothesis. Whatever the tentative answer solution came in your mind, just test it. How you will test? We will talk about collecting data, doing that, statistical analysis, like that. Now, how the hypothesis form, I have told you, we will talk about different steps. So, hypothesis is a very crucial and important step in the scientific research. One thing you should keep in mind, sometimes a researcher is confused. When he is doing the research, he always thinks about that what tentative solution I have assumed must be proved. It may not be proved. Your hypothesis may be rejected. In a research, proving hypothesis is equally important as rejecting it. But what are the reasons for that? We will try to find it out. So, proposed answer, we will test it. Now, you know, in elections have been held. Okay. Now, we do the exit poll are hypotheses. We assume by the research collecting data that party A, party B, party C will be this much vote. Now, when you do the real counting, that is actually research, then it will be proved whether my survey was correct or not. That exit was what? It was a hypothesis based on certain assumptions. So, hypothesis is nothing. It is a proposed answer of the problem. In fact, a good theory to the formation of the hypothesis, prediction based on the theory. Now, this prediction proposed that we make on the basis of some theory, on the basis of surveys. This happened, so we assume that it will happen. It might be helpful to think of an if-then. If it happens, then it will be. If-then statement. If aggression is shown in the movie, then aggression may come in the child. If aggression is shown in the movie, then aggression may not come in the child. If aggression is shown in the movie, then there will be no effect on the child. So, what is hypothesis? If-then statement. If it happens, if there is a noise, then my study may be disturbed. If there is a noise, there will be no disturbance in my concentration in my study. So, it might be helpful to think of an if-then statement. If the world is round, then a person should be able to sail in the straight line around the world and come back to where he or she started. If the world is round is the theory, part of this statement a theory based on many observations and facts generated by observers. Light observing that when a ship sails toward the horizon, it seems to disappear from the bottom up, indicate a curvature of the surface of the water. The then part of the statement is the hypothesis, a specific testable prediction based on the theory. So, if this is the condition of the earth, then it may happen. If I am moving toward the 90-degree, then direction may be this. If 180, then direction may be this. If then, now it is all prediction, it is all supposition, assumed. Now let the data do, it will tell you that what is happening actually in the research. In the previous example, we might say, if exposure to violence, which I have given you, if exposure to violence leads to increased aggression in the children, then children who watch the violent cartoons will become more aggressive. The last part of that statement is the hypothesis to be tested. Those children who have seen the aggressive cartoons movie, they will be aggressive, and those who have not seen the aggressive cartoon movie, they will not be aggressive. So we will test the hypothesis in the research. So testing the hypothesis is one of the very important step in the research, and all further steps we will talking about will be testing the hypothesis. So first you have the problem, then you have made a hypothesis. The third step is testing the hypothesis. Now the formulated hypothesis is to be tested. The proposed hypothesis may be accepted or rejected. To test the hypothesis, following steps are to be taken. I have just explained you that a hypothesis may be accepted, it may be rejected. Acceptance is has the equal significance value as rejecting the hypothesis. So how the hypothesis will be accepted or rejected, what are the different steps? Now we will follow that. Now after formulation of the hypothesis, the first step will be design of the research tool and techniques. How you will conduct your research, what will be the different tools, what different techniques you will use. Now I will tell you, explain it. Design means a strategy, a methodology which you will use. Design means a strategy to be adopted. For example, in a simple design, two groups are taken, namely experimental group and control group. Experimental group is one in which the independent variable is introduced, and control group is that where independent variable is not introduced. Now I have given you this simple design. What is design? Design is a strategy by which you will do the research. Now simple experimental control. Now we say the children who are looking aggressive cartoon movie, I have made a hypothesis that their behavior will be aggressive in the future because they have seen the aggressive movies. Now I have observed data shows that they were. Now what is independent variable? Aggressive movie. And what is dependent variable? Aggression behavior of the children. Now suppose the children who have seen aggressive movie, they have become aggressive. Now how I can say that it is only because of the movie? There may be some other factors. So my strategy design will be, I will take another group which is called control, in which the value of independent will be 0. Now I will take two groups of the children. One group will be exposed to aggressive movie, other will not be exposed to the aggressive movie. Now if those children which are not exposed to aggressive movie, their behavior is normal as earlier, and those who have seen the aggressive movie, now their behavior changes and converting into aggressive, now I can say it is because of the aggressive cartoon movie. So this is the design, it is a strategy. So after hypothesis, we will make a design. In an experiment, purpose is to see the functional relationship between independent and dependent variable, but in an experimental situation, certain extraneous variable emerge which may affect the dependent variable in addition to independent variable. If this situation occurs, then the purpose of experiment will be defeated. Therefore, it is necessary to control the extraneous variable. Now, it is part of the design. Now, I want to see the effect of independent on dependent variable. I have told you in one of my lectures of the variable how we will control. Now here I will only name. I will explain in detail in my previous lecture, in which control of the extraneous variable have been explained. Purpose is to study the effect of independent on dependent functional relationship. If independent is increased, dependent is variable is affected manner, or decreased, it is affected or not. But other variables may also enter in the field, and they may also affect the dependent variable. So in a design strategy, we control the independent, we control the extraneous variable. We manipulate independent and control the extraneous. Now, how to control? There are various techniques. Elimination will not permit the environmental variables to enter. Suppose sound is disturbing the concentration. You want to say, I will take the soundproof room. So I have eliminated the sound. Constancy of condition, balancing, counterbalancing, randomization. These are the 5 techniques by which we can control the extraneous variable. All these techniques we have talked in detail in one of the previous lecture, or in the coming lecture you will see these all the points, but I have mentioned here because in experimental design you must know it is part of that. Constancy condition, we will use the, suppose we have the 5 instruments, the effect of the different instruments happen on the data. So I will use only one instrument for all the persons. One teacher will teach all the in all the sections. So I have made the constancy of the condition. Whether the method of the teaching is good, average or bad, it will affect all persons equally. It is constancy of the condition. So likewise, we will use these techniques. The techniques may be, now once you have decided that you have made the design, if it is experimental, then you will use the control techniques. The techniques may be different as per the nature of the research. It may be case study, observation, interview, questionnaire, rating, survey, etc. Now, if I am working my client, my sample is very small kids, then I don't take the interview, I can't do any do testing, I will simply use the observation. So I have decided my step in the methodology to be observation. Suppose they are adults, I can talk to them, they can frequently have good conversation, I may use the interview, I may use the questionnaire, I may use the rating scale, I may use the survey, I may use the psychological testing. Psychological tests are also used to measure the variable of interest. Now, it is up to researcher that which tool he wants to select. Now, if he wants to use very objective and standardized, then he will go for the psychological tests. I want to see the effect of intelligence IQ on the performance. IQ I can guess very well guess by observation. IQ I can guess by the interview, but that's not standard, I may be biased. So if I want to use a standard tool, then I will go for the psychological testing, but if I want a general opinion, I will go for the interview or observation, whatever I do. So then you will decide that which tool or technique you will use. Now, what is questionnaire, what is observation, what is interview in psychological method? In this paper, we will talk in detail about these methods also. Now, once you have decided, here we are talking only steps, not details of those steps, we are talking only steps. So once you have decided that what tool you have used, then you will have the sampling. One of the important steps in the selection of the sample is the selection of sample. Samples may be selected from the population by the techniques like random sampling, purposive sampling, stratified random sampling, etc. If the design is such that a sample is to be distributed in a more than one group, then randomization is adopted. The importance of randomization. Random selection is the best way to choose the participant for any study. Participant must be assigned to either the experimental group or the control group. Not surprisingly, random assignments of participants to one or the other condition is the best way to ensure control over the other interfering or extraneous variable. Random assignments of participants means that each participant has an equal chance of being assigned to each condition. Now, you have taken the problem, you have formed the hypothesis, you have made the design, you have decided which technique tool you will use, interview, question, test, experiment, whatever you decide. Now, to whom? On which group I will administer my test? To whom I will observe? That is called sample. Now, there are two words, population and the sample. Population is totality and sample is part of the totality which we are taking for the study. Now, my blood in my body is the population. The 2 drops which a doctor takes from a body to test whether there is an infection or not, that is called sample. So, again, sampling technique I have only mentioned. We have a detailed lecture, we will have the detailed lecture on the probability sampling, non-probability, what is random sampling, what is stratified. But a sample good sample is that which is objective, no biases, which is representative of the population. Suppose there are 1000 students in your campus. Now you have taken 200 students for your study. So whatever the results of the 200 you will get, you will generalize that. These results are for not 200 but for the 1000 student which is your population. Now if my criteria to choose the sample is wrong, then there will be the problem. So next step is the selection of the sampling, and that is the different techniques we will talk about detail when we will come to the data. Now the sampling. Now you have collected the sampling. Now you will collect the data collection. If there is an interview, do the interview. If you are using observation, do the observation. You are doing psychological tests, administer psychological tests. You are doing the questionnaire, get the copies and distribute to the students. They will fill out and hand over to you. So whatever tool you have, technique you have decided, by that you will collect the data. Now once the data has come, now that data will be analyzed. So last step of the research is the analysis of the data. Now in the analysis of the data, data may be in the form of the qualitative, it may be formed in the quantitative, it may be in the 2 forms. It may be qualitative, it may be quantitative. The obtained data is analyzed. If the data is in the form of the number, and appropriate statistical techniques is to analyze the data. Content analysis is used to analyze the data which is qualitative. Now here it is by mistake written quantitative, but it is qualitative. Now when the data is in the form of the quality, then we will use the content analysis. Whatever answers I have got from your oral or the written you have given me, now I will do the content analysis. It means this, it means this, it means this. When the data is in the form of the numbers, it is called quantitative data. When quantitative data is with you, then you will use the statistical analysis, and by that statistical analysis you will come to a conclusion, you will do the inference. Now how to use the statistical analysis? Now there are different tools, techniques of the analysis. Suppose we want to measure only the central tendency. What is the average intelligence, what is the average interest, what is the median, then we will use the measure of central tendency, mean, median, mode. Now when you are assuming the population, you are taking sample from the population and the data of the population we assume it will be of the population, there may be certain error. So what is the dispersion, deviation, we will do by the standard deviation. This we will talk about in details when statistical analysis will come in the next paper. Then I will tell you the different techniques how we can calculate. But here I am telling simply, when variability is to be calculated, then the measure of dispersion will be used, and when the central tendency is to use, then the mean, median, mode is to be used. Now suppose you are to find a relationship between the 2 variables. Now there are 2 variables. I want to study what the relation of age and intelligence, in relation of intelligence, IQ, and your examination performance, 2 variables. One is IQ and second is the your performance. Then I will use the correlation. Now correlation is the means corresponding relation. Corresponding relation means the relationship between the 2 variables. When you have 2 variables with you, then you do the analysis, and that is called correlation. Now correlation range will be -1 to +1. It cannot be more than 1 in any condition whatsoever it may be, because 1 means the perfect correlation. Now suppose I am telling you how to analyze the data, not the technique, only simply mentioning the names. Now suppose you want to study a comparative study of the intelligence of male versus female, gender, whether the males are intelligent or the females are intelligent. Now here You are not finding a relationship of intelligence of the male and female. You want to find the difference of intelligence between the two groups, rural, urban, male, female, younger, older. Then small t, t-test is used. Now t-test will analyze whether the difference between the two groups is significant or not. When the data is in the form of the frequency, then chi-square is used. Likewise, you will analyze the data. Once the data has been analyzed, then last step is the interpretation. Then we will make the interpretation and come to a conclusion that problem we have taken. Now this data speaks that I took a problem whether there is a difference between male and female, in intelligence. This was my problem. I made a hypothesis that girls are more intelligent than the boys. This is my hypothesis. Then I collected the data. I took the group, selected the sample. There were 5,000 girls in my campus. I took 100 out of them. That was the sampling. Now on that 100 girls and 100 boys which I have selected, now I will administer a psychological test to determine, to know their IQ. So out of the tools, I have selected psychological testing. I have told you observation, experiment, interview, questionnaire. Now what I have decided, I have taken a psychological test. Now I have administered psychological test on 100 boys and 100 girls which I have chosen from that 5,000 population. Now what technique we have taken, that we will talk about later on. So now the IQ of the 100 boys is with me, 100 girls is with me. Now that means now I will make the comparison. Now I will apply that small t technique, t ratio, that whether the mean of the boys and the girls which is coming, it is significant or not. If it is significant, then I can come to the conclusion that B group is intelligent than the A group. If it is not significant, then I will say both groups are equally intelligent. There is no difference. This is the interpretation of the data. So we started that research is a systematic mode of doing a work in which we find the new finding, new theories, or test the old theories, or we find the applicability of the theories. So what is that systematization? First form the problem, then form the hypothesis. How hypothesis form, which is a good hypothesis, we will talk later on. After hypothesis, think about the strategy, design, that how you will work that design experimental group, control group, single group or not, you have to take the decision. Now after that, you decide that which technique tool you will use, whether you will collect data on observation, by questionnaire, by testing, by experiment, by case study, sociometry, what not, what techniques, tools we have in psychology, you decide one. After that now you have taken it, now tool, you select your sample. Best sample is that which is objective, representative of the population. On that selected sample, suppose I have decided to choose psychological testing. Now administer the psychological tests to the sample, both group, 100 boys, 100 girls. Then data, this is called data. Now data is with you. Now you calculate mean and t, and then statistically you try to see that what are the findings. That will be your interpretation. So this was the simple steps in the research technology, in the research method. So today I try to give you in very brief the orientation of the research. I talked about Socrates and the Bacon, then I talked different steps in the research. But what are the details of those steps, we'll talk in the simple chapter, detailed chapter, when we will come to that topic. So this was all about orientation and steps in the research.